Please be aware that the upcoming video contains content that may not be suitable for all viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello again, good people. Thank you for joining me for another episode of The Doc is In. Tonight's episode is some pretty heavy subject matter, so I'll try and dive right in. I received a lot of emails regarding childhood experiences and issues that have taken place in childhood that users are either trying to get past or they're just trying to make heads or tails of it. It's not uncommon. Actually, I see it in practice quite a bit. So one of the first things that I want to bring up with you is there's a scale or a survey. It's called the ACE survey. ACE stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences. So this survey focuses on the things that may have happened in your childhood that may be affecting you as an adult. The reason for this is what scientists have found is that from the first time that you experience an adverse childhood event, it follows you throughout your life. So that adverse childhood event could lead to things like some social or emotional or cognitive like stifling or impairment. It could lead to you taking on really high risk health behaviors, such as addictions, risky sexual activity, impulsivity, you name it, going up to acquiring diseases, disabilities, social issues, which will ultimately lead to early death. Generally, and I'm going to put a link to where you can look at an ACE survey, and I'll post one through the video at some point so that you can just see what it looks like. Basically, the ACE survey is fairly simple. The more interaction or the more you've had some type of dealing with any of the things that they're discussing, then the higher your score puts you at a greater risk. Generally, if you have an ACE score that's over 4, there are some years being taken off your life in one way or another. ACE scores over 4 are 10 times more likely to abuse drugs than others. I believe if you have an ACE score that's over 5 or 6, the thought is that usually your lifespan is decreased by up to like 20 years. So I just want to kind of talk to you about what the ACE survey discusses and how it impacts you. So the first thing is any type of abuse, be it physical, emotional, sexual abuse, neglect, be it physical or emotional neglect, any type of household dysfunction. So when we're talking about someone being arrested, someone being on drugs, maybe your parents are divorced, you watched as one of your parents were treated violently. A lot of times these surveys focus on the mother being treated violently. However, in today's culture, you have a lot of same-sex married couples wherein it may be a father who's treated violently, or you may just have a very a different dynamic where maybe mom is abusive to dad, or there may be mental illness. Excuse me. There may be mental illness in the family, which is often the case, especially when it's untreated. So, how do these ACE factors show up? Oftentimes they show up in a lack of physical activity, which can lead to weight gain or just general bad eating habits. It can lead to things like smoking, alcoholism, drug use, a lack of a sense of responsibility. It can lead to things like sexually transmitted diseases, strokes, heart disease, suicide attempts, mental health issues in general with depression. All of these things kind of come out of where we start. So that's why I said it's very much a pyramid. So we start out with adverse experiences and it leads up to things that can readily lead to an earlier than normal death. That's largely why it's important that we open up conversation around the things that have happened to us in childhood. I know a lot of people don't like to share, but sharing it is what gets it off your chest and frees you from it. Um, I hate to tell you this, but secrets never remain secrets for long. And even if you're the only person who knows, that's one too many. And carrying that secret all alone is probably very unhealthy for you. So let me go into a little bit more depth as to why started I wanted to do this video. Um, Getting hearing from a lot of the people who are watching that they've been through childhood sexual trauma or childhood physical trauma. It it's painful. I've never dealt with that type of abuse, and I mean I'm one of the fortunate ones because I do realize that I believe it's something to the effect of 1 in 3 adults have had some type of childhood, abuse. And honestly, for men of color, that number actually goes up as in usually in minority culture. For African Americans, for a lot of Hispanic uh, men as well, you're taught not to talk about it. You're told to buck up, get over it, or it's somebody in the family, so no one wants to share, nobody wants to talk about it. They want to just sweep everything under the rug because you don't want anyone to be embarrassed. But ultimately, dealing with sexual abuse, dealing with physical abuse of any kind is traumatic. And what I've seen personally from being a clinician, from being a therapist, is it leads to a lot of detrimental results. You have people who lose their sense of self, who um, don't understand why they were the ones chosen to be abused. And as a result, they get these feelings of, is there something about me that makes me a victim or a target? Is there, did I like it? Not realizing that things may have happened, but it's literally just a physical response. It is not an indicator that you liked it or that you ascended to it because you didn't. As a child, you should never be put into those adult situations. So to have something like that happen to you is nothing to be, ashamed of or feel that you somehow caused it, because there's nothing that you could have done to cause that. Someone took advantage of you. They took advantage of um, your your childlike innocence, and you've had something pretty big stolen from you. Um, I definitely recommend doing some extended trauma work if you can, and especially for men. Um, when I worked in prison, I met a lot of men on intake who had dealt with all these anger issues, joined gangs, done all this stuff, and all of it stemmed from things that had happened to them in their childhood that they never processed, they never talked about. They had been neglected, they had been physically abused, emotionally abused, they had watched their parents be abused. They didn't know how to function as an adult in society in a healthy way. A lot of people overlook things like emotional and physical neglect, but that's a big deal. When you feel as a child that you're alone and you don't have support, that is a huge factor. And that's one that I get with more so, I think, with my LGBTQ plus clients, where they came out and as a result, they were pushed away. And now they grew up the larger part of their life with no support. And these things make up such a huge part of our society and such a huge part of our population. So we have all of these people who are, in some way broken, in some way. And when I say broken, they're still a whole person, but they're internally broken, and they're just going from relationship to relationship, from thing to thing, just hoping to find that one thing that will complete them. But the truth is, you're operating without all your pieces there, and you're operating from a step back. Um, Having things happen in your family, like witnessing or dealing with personally, like abuse, violence in the home can have a tremendous effect on kids. And they usually go one of two ways. When someone witnesses abuse of any kind, either they become the abuser or they become the perpetually abused. So oftentimes when I see relationships with women where, I hate to say women, I'm going to say anybody. When I see someone in a relationship where they are being mistreated and they're accepting it and oftentimes making excuses for the person, I often have to ask questions like, tell me about what happened growing up. What was your home life like? And I would say 9.5 times out of 10, what I hear is, oh, my father beat my mom. My, you know, my father beat my mom, or I watched someone beat someone else, or, you know, I was beaten. Because, see, when we watch this, when we witness this, what this does is it normalizes it. And it makes us think, well, now, well, I guess, this is normal. This is what love looks like. So if you don't have a concept of what love looks like, I see so many people with, oh well, my spouse cheats, but he brings home money and he takes care of us, and and that's all that makes it okay. Because I watched my dad do that, or I watched my grandparents go through this, and this is normal. It's not normal. You've normalized it. It's what you know to be normal, but it's not okay. It's not what would be a normal, quote unquote, relationship. um, Anytime you're in a relationship where, as a result of that relationship, you feel like less than a person, you feel like you're being treated unfairly, you are experiencing, um, just an overwhelming sense of grief, loss, guilt as a result of the other person, that's probably not a healthy situation. And it's one that maybe you two should work together on, or you need to work on your own. I try to touch on the topic at hand without being too graphic, but I really wanted to make sure that you were aware of just the general gist of adverse childhood experiences and how they do affect you as an adult. Um, I will do my best to put in, some graphics for you so that you can see some of the things we're talking about. I encourage you to take the ACE survey. I'll put a link to it in the description box. Um, if you or anyone you know is a victim of assault, particularly any type of sexual assault, I encourage you to contact RAIN. Um, their number is 1-800-656-4673. And again, I'll post that down below. Um, it's never too late to report what happened. It's never too late to make someone accountable for what they've done. States do have limitations, but states do have, like, statute of limitations, and I also post that link. But if you've been a victim of abuse, especially sexual abuse, it's never too late to make your perpetrators accountable for what they've done. Stay strong out there. Be encouraged. Love yourself. Love someone else. We'll all be better for it.